My name is Amelia Reed, and for 5 years, I built my world around a man who made me feel like I was too much and not enough at the same time. His name was Ryan Blake, all confident, charming in that dangerous way that makes you ignore every red flag because you're addicted to his approval. I met him when I was 23. I had just started my first job as a junior architect at a firm downtown. I was hopeful, ambitious, maybe a little naive. Ryan was a senior project manager at the same firm. The first day I walked into the conference room, nervous and excited. He smiled at me in a way that made my chest flutter. "You'll learn fast," he said, shaking my hand. "Just don't let this place eat you alive." It sounded like advice. It turned out to be a warning. At first, he was magnetic. He'd bring me coffee, compliment my designs, stay late just to help. When he asked me out, I said yes immediately. I thought I was lucky. For a while, I was. He'd text me good morning, pick me up from work, tell me I was beautiful even when I wore paint-stained jeans. But slowly, love turned into something else. It started with little comments. "You're too sensitive, Amelia. Do you really think that design is good enough? Maybe wear something simpler next time. You don't need to try so hard." Each one felt small on its own. Together they built a cage. I stopped wearing red lipstick because he said it was too loud. I deleted half my social media posts because he didn't like me showing off. I even turned down a work trip to New York because he said, "If you go, who'll be here when I need you?" I thought love meant compromise, but I was compromising myself out of existence. By the 3rd year, I barely recognized the girl in the mirror. She smiled less, she dreamed smaller, she apologized too much, and still it wasn't enough for him. I remember one evening, his birthday dinner. I'd spent hours cooking, bought him the watch he'd been eyeing for months. He opened it, smiled faintly, and said, "It's nice, but you really shouldn't waste money on things like this. You don't make that much." Something inside me cracked that night, quietly but deeply. After dinner, he got a call from a client. He went into the other room, stayed there for almost an hour. When he came back, he smelled faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. I didn't ask. I didn't have the courage. I told myself I was overthinking, that good women stay and make things work. But the truth was, I was drowning, and he was the weight pulling me under. It was a Friday morning when everything started to change. I had just finished a big presentation, my design for a sustainable housing project that I had worked on for months. The board loved it. Everyone congratulated me. Everyone except Ryan. When we got home, he poured himself a drink and said, "Don't get too proud. You only got that reaction because of me. I coached you." I stared at him, stunned. "Ryan, I worked my ass off for that." He smirked. "You wouldn't even be at this firm if it weren't for me." That's when I realized something. He didn't love me. He needed me small enough to make himself feel big. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing his words in my head. "You wouldn't be here without me." Maybe he was right, but what if he wasn't? I opened my laptop and looked through my old designs. The ones he told me were too ambitious. They were beautiful. And for the first time in years, I saw my own worth staring back at me. That was the night I decided to rise. I applied secretly to a new firm, a competitor known for hiring bold designers. I spent every spare minute working on my portfolio. I didn't tell Ryan a thing. 3 weeks later, I got the email, "Congratulations, Amelia. We'd love to have you on our team." I cried when I read it, not because I was happy, but because I finally realized how long I had been waiting for permission to live my own life. When I told Ryan, he laughed. "You at Hartman & Co. Don't embarrass yourself, Amelia. They'll eat you alive." I smiled softly, maybe, but I'd rather be eaten alive than stay half dead here. That was the night I packed my bags. He didn't even try to stop me. As I closed the door behind me, I whispered to myself, "He made me feel small, but I'm done living small," and I meant it. When I left Ryan's apartment that night, I didn't have a plan, just a suitcase, a job offer, and a heart that finally belonged to me. I moved into a tiny studio apartment with peeling paint and a view of the alley. It wasn't much, but it was mine. For the first time in years, every inch of space felt free. The first morning I woke up alone, it felt strange. No one to ask why I took too long in the shower. No one to criticize my outfit or comment on my breakfast. Just silence, the kind that used to scare me, but now felt like possibility. Starting at Hartman & Co. was terrifying. Everyone there seemed confident, loud, sure of themselves. The kind of people Ryan always told me I wasn't. I remember my first day clearly. I walked into that glass building, hands trembling, trying to look composed. My new boss, Elena Hartman, greeted me warmly. "Amelia Reed, I've seen your portfolio. It's brilliant. You've got a rare eye, emotional precision. Don't ever lose that." I almost laughed. Emotional precision. Ryan used to say emotion ruined professionalism. I nodded instead. "Thank you. I won't." Those first months were brutal. Long nights, endless revisions, constant doubt. Every time I felt insecure, Ryan's voice echoed in my head, "You're not good enough." And every time it did, I worked harder to prove him wrong. Slowly, I started earning recognition. One day, Elena asked me to lead a new project, a modern art museum design meant to capture human resilience. I smiled when I heard the theme. Resilience. It felt poetic. I poured everything I had into that project, every sleepless night, every broken piece of me, every quiet scream I'd swallowed over the years. The design was bold open skylights, curved glass, reflective panels that changed color with the sun. When I presented it to the board, my hands didn't shake, my voice didn't tremble, and when they stood up to clap, I didn't cry. I just smiled and whispered under my breath, "You see, Ryan, I can stand tall without you." That night, I went home and opened a bottle of cheap wine. I turned on the music loud, danced barefoot across my tiny apartment, and laughed. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. 6 months later, the firm hosted a networking gala. It was my first time being invited to something like that as a project lead. I wore a black dress, the same one Ryan once said made me look too confident. I wore it anyway. The venue was buzzing, laughter, champagne, cameras flashing, and then across the room I froze. Ryan. He was there. I hadn't seen him in over a year. He looked the same smug grin, same tailored suit, except his eyes widened when he saw me. He made his way over. "Amelia," he said softly. "Wow, you look different." "I feel different," I replied. He chuckled awkwardly. "I heard you're at Hartman & Co. now. Impressive." "Yeah," I said with a small smile. "You told me they'd eat me alive. Remember, turns out I had an appetite too." He blinked. "I didn't mean it like that." "Didn't you?" I tilted my head. "You made me feel small so you could feel big. But now, standing here, I realize you were never tall. You were just standing on my shoulders." He looked stunned, speechless. And for the first time ever, I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel sadness. I felt free. Elena called me from across the room, waving proudly. "Amelia, they loved your presentation. Investors are asking for you." I smiled at Ryan one last time. "Excuse me, I have a future to attend to." I turned and walked away, the sound of my heels against marble like a heartbeat, strong, certain, alive. Over the next year, everything changed. My project became the firm's signature design, and I was promoted to creative director. Articles were written about me, Amelia Reed, redefining architecture with emotion. Each headline felt like a quiet victory. Then one morning, I got an unexpected email, subject, collaboration proposal from Ryan Blake. I almost laughed out loud. He had started his own small firm and wanted to partner on a modern development project. The arrogance of it, to think I'd work with him again. Still, something inside me wanted closure. So I agreed to a meeting. He arrived early, clearly nervous. "You've done amazing, Amelia. I always knew you had it in you." I smiled politely. "No, Ryan, you never did. That's why you lost me." He sighed. "I was jealous of you. I didn't want to admit it, but you were always better, smarter, stronger. It made me feel less." His honesty surprised me. For a brief moment, I felt sorry for him, but pity wasn't what I wanted. I looked at him gently. You made me feel small for years. I almost believed you, but now I know no one can make me small unless I let them. I stood up, extended my hand. Good luck, Ryan, truly. He hesitated, then shook it. His eyes were full of regret, and mine full of peace. That night, I sat by my window, city lights flickering like memories. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who begged to be loved, who apologized for existing too loudly. She deserved an apology too, so I whispered it out loud. I'm sorry for doubting you, Amelia. You were always enough. For the first time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. I was no longer the woman who lived in someone else's shadow. I was the light. It's been 3 years since I walked out of Ryan's apartment with a suitcase and a shaking heart. 3 years since I learned that loving someone who shrinks you is just another way of disappearing. And 3 years since I decided that if the world was going to underestimate me, I'd build a world where no woman would ever have to feel that small again. I'm 30 now. I own a design firm called Rise Studio. We specialize in community projects led entirely by women's schools, shelters, creative spaces. I started it with the savings from my Hartman years and a promise to myself. Every structure we build will be a place where someone can breathe again. Some days, I still think about Ryan, not with anger, not even sadness, but with quiet recognition. He was a chapter, not the story. The pain he caused became the foundation I built my future on. Last year, we were commissioned to design a new women's innovation center, a space for young architects, engineers, and designers. It was the biggest project of my career. The city hosted a press event to announce it. I stood on stage, looking out at the crowd, remembering that girl who once couldn't even speak without permission. My name is Amelia Reed. I began, and for a long time, I thought small was the safest way to live. But small doesn't keep you safe, it keeps you silent, and silence helps no one. I told them how doubt can become direction, how rejection can become fuel. When I finished, people stood and clapped, not because I was perfect, but because I was honest. For the first time in my life, I wasn't performing. I was just me. After the event, a young woman came up to me. She was maybe 25, nervous but determined. Your speech, she said softly. It felt like you were talking to me. My boyfriend tells me I dream too big, that I should be more realistic. I smiled sadly, seeing my younger self in her eyes. Then dream bigger, I said. If he's afraid of your light, it's because he's never seen the sun. She laughed through tears, and I realized this was my revenge. Not proving Ryan wrong, but helping other women never need to prove themselves to men like him. Months later, I received an invitation to a local business awards ceremony. Nominee Amelia Reed, founder of Rise Studio. I didn't expect to win, but I went anyway, wearing a white suit the color of peace. Halfway through the evening, I noticed a familiar face across the room. Ryan. He looked older, quieter. He saw me too, hesitated, then gave a small nod. It wasn't the smug smirk I remembered, it was humble. When my name was announced as the winner of the Architect of the Year award, the room erupted in applause. I walked to the stage, heart steady. As I accepted the award, I said, I used to think revenge was about proving people wrong, but real revenge is just living well, with integrity and purpose. To every woman who was told she was too much, don't you dare shrink. The world needs you exactly as you are. Ryan was clapping when I stepped down. For a brief moment our eyes met. There was no bitterness left, just truth. He mouthed the words, I'm proud of you. And I nodded, not for him, but for the girl I used to be. That night, I sat on my balcony overlooking the city. The award rested on the table beside my coffee cup. Below, the world buzzed, cars, laughter, life moving endlessly forward. I thought about everything that had brought me here, the heartbreak, the tears, the fear, the rebuilding. And I realized something simple yet profound. Ryan didn't ruin me, he revealed me. If he hadn't made me feel small, I might never have discovered how tall I could stand. I took a deep breath, feeling the quiet satisfaction that comes not from winning over others, but from winning over yourself. Then I whispered softly, almost like a prayer to the girl I once was, "You made it, Amelia, you rose." I smiled, watching the sunrise bleed across the horizon golden, endless, unafraid, because this was my story. My voice, my victory. He made me feel small, but I showed him, and the world, how big I could rise.